Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are going to unpack a really powerful communication tactic. It's something you see all the time. Language that's been specifically designed to send two totally different messages at the exact same time. So let's kick things off with a puzzle. I'm sure you've seen this happen, right? Some public figure says something kind of controversial, a huge firestorm kicks off, and then the defense is always the same. Oh, that's not what I meant, or you're just taking it out of context. But that brings up a really important question. If a certain phrase is so easily misunderstood, why do they keep saying it over and over again? Well, the thing is, the answer to that puzzle, it's usually not a mistake. It's actually a very deliberate strategy. The whole point is to craft one single message that can be heard in two completely different ways.
This technique has a name. It's often called a dog whistle, or, strategic ambiguity. And the name dog whistle is a perfect analogy. Just like a real dog whistle that only dogs can hear, this is a way of using words or phrases that sound totally normal, totally ordinary to most of us, but for a very specific in-group, those same words carry a different, often much more extreme meaning.
So, okay, let's break down how this dual message system actually works. On the surface, for the general public, the statement sounds pretty plausible. Maybe it's just, some simple criticism. But for the target audience, that exact same statement is heard loud and clear as a coded signal. And what does that do? It mobilizes their base, all while the speaker gets to keep what we call plausible deniability with everybody else. At the end of the day, it's basically a communications two-for-one deal. The speaker gets to activate their core supporters, the ones who hear the real message, and at the same time, they can deflect any mainstream criticism just by hiding behind that harmless public meaning of their words. It's pretty clever when you think about it. Okay, so you might be thinking, how can we really be sure this is happening? It's easy to just go with a gut feeling, right? But it turns out there are actually structured, almost scientific ways to analyze this kind of language. So here's a huge clue. It's when the meaning of a word is suddenly narrowed down, but only after it causes an uproar. So think about it. Someone uses a really broad, kind of dehumanizing term. When people push back and criticize it, the defense suddenly becomes, oh, no, we only meant this very specific, very negative subgroup. That kind of after-the-fact clarification, that's a classic sign. And all this leads us to a really practical three-step checklist that honestly anyone can use to spot a potential dog whistle. It's all about spotting patterns, looking at how they defend themselves, and watching for those tricky, shifting meanings. First up, repetition. You have to ask, was this just a one-time slip of the tongue, or is it part of a pattern? You want to check if the speaker uses the same coded phrases over and over. And, this is crucial, you also need to see if those exact same phrases have a specific, well-understood meaning inside certain online communities or extremist groups. Step 2 is all about observing the defense. Is there a real, genuine attempt to clarify what they meant? Or are the critics just immediately shut down and dismissed as oversensitive or politically correct? See, when the goal shifts away from clarifying the meaning and becomes about delegitimizing the person who's criticizing, well, that is a major red flag. And number 3, watch for those shifting meanings. Ask yourself, is there one harmless public interpretation for everybody else, but at the same time a much more radical meaning that's understood and even celebrated by a specific in-group? If the answer is yes, then you're looking at that dual audience strategy in plain sight. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Once you can actually identify this whole mechanism, you're not just a passive listener anymore. Just understanding the strategy gives you a whole new framework for how to respond effectively. It gives you a way to move beyond just, simple outrage. Just reacting with anger, that often plays right into their hands. It lets the speaker just dismiss you as being hysterical or oversensitive. The much more powerful response is to just calmly pull back the curtain and explain to the wider audience exactly how the code works. So this basically gives us a toolkit for how to push back. First, contextualize. Don't just scandalize. Explain the code, where it came from, and the effect it has. Second, use your sources. Don't just tell people, show them where and how the code is understood by those specific groups. And third, set clear norms. We have to establish that dehumanizing language is just not a legitimate tool for debate in our institutions, period. And that right there is the real takeaway. When you explain the trick, it completely loses its power. It's like a magic trick. Once you know how it's done, it's not so magical anymore. By exposing the whole dual messaging system, you strip away the speaker's plausible deniability. They just can't hide behind a harmless public meaning anymore, not when the wider audience knows to look for the coded one. So this brings us full circle, right back to where we started. Armed with this checklist, this framework, we can see that original question in a totally new light. When a statement is consistently misunderstood, you really have to ask yourself, is that misunderstanding a bug? Or is it the entire feature? Is it just a simple mistake in communication? Or is it a calculated, strategically ambiguous message? Definitely something to think about.